My name is Tara Tiemann, and I live here at Westwood Co-housing Community. And Westwood Co-housing there's 25 households here. We co-own the land. We own our own houses. Right in the middle of all of the housing development, there's a common house building that we co-own, and in that building there are a lot of community meetings, community meals. There's a commercial kitchen, there's a large dining area, there's a kids' playroom, there's offices, den. People come down there and get together and watch movies together. It's kind of like there's a mini power plant there. We have solar panels that are up on the roof of our common house, and that heats up the hot water, and that hot water is stored in tanks in the common house, and that water then circulates around this community. We have radiant floor heat. We have backup gas. There are guest rooms, there's a laundry, shared laundry, there's a woodworking shop, lots of shared resources so that everybody doesn't have to own a hammer, and everybody doesn't have to have a television set in their house. And the shared meals are a real social connector and a way to just know our neighbors. So I know everybody that lives here. There's 25 houses, and I know everybody that lives here. Earth Haven is on a much larger piece of land. There's no more possibility of really growing your own food and becoming more self-sufficient. I used to live out there. It's about an hour drive from town, but my work is in town, and it wouldn't really make sense for me to live out there. There are more people now that are living in urban areas, and we really need to do a lot of work in the urban areas so that people are also living sustainable lifestyles. So Earth Haven has the luxury of a large piece of land. They're off the grid. There's a commitment that was made from the beginning to be off the grid and follow permaculture principles, and it's a much more rustic lifestyle. There's water catchment systems on every house that's required. And solar power and water power, and so they generate their own power. And here we generate a certain amount of our own power, but we have a large backup system, and then every household we're connected to the grid in our households. Read a whole lot about the, sustainability resources. I think that maybe what really instilled it in me is I grew up in a family with 15 children. And so I grew up in community where there were 17 people in a 6-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms. And so I grew up learning how to conserve. Shut the lights off, don't use up too much hot water because someone else might not have enough hot water. My mother cooked everything from scratch, so we didn't have processed foods. My father had a large garden. So a lot of that was already, a lot of that was modeled to me growing up. It's not necessarily what my other brothers and sisters chose to do. There's something in me, because I remember when I was little, when people drank soda pop out of the tin cans, I wouldn't drink it because there was no way. You'd have to just throw it away in the garbage, and where was that going to go? So I would drink it out of a bottle if it was a bottle that could get recycled. But I would never. So from a young age, and I had a fort out in the woods, and we played outside, and I had the luxury of having those things as part of my roots, and have just continued to carry it with me throughout my life. When I went to college, I went away to nursing school because my mother wanted one of her 9 daughters to become a nurse, but I wasn't really interested in becoming a nurse. I wanted to go into environmental studies, so I went to a school and that was going to teach where I was going to learn environmental studies, and the advisor told me that I would never find a job. So I went back and went to nursing school, but within the first year I didn't see enough alternatives. I saw a lot of dependence on quick fixes and medication, and not on preventative medicine, and I was more interested in preventative medicine. I worked as a nursing assistant in a small town hospital in northern Minnesota, and I saw a lot of people who were very sick, and I made a commitment right then. I said, I don't want to turn out like these people. And so while I was in nursing school, I decided to quit, and I decided for 1 year to follow my heart. And in that year, I took a class on passive solar home design and construction. I went to the Shelter Institute in Bath, Maine, And then I took a sign language class because I wanted to learn sign language to communicate with a friend of mine. And those two things have been kind of guided my life since, because I never went back to nursing school. I continued on with my degree. I changed my degree. I have a degree in deaf studies. And then for graduate school, I did a degree in natural health and applied ecology, which is very broad. But I found a university, Gaia University, where students could go and they could design their own curriculum, and it was hands-on and it was more practical, related to really application, that what you're learning here is you're going to go out and you're going to apply that in the world. So that's why I chose Gaia University. I work in medical settings quite a bit, and a lot of what I see are things that I know that if you lived a healthy lifestyle that you wouldn't have to deal with those. So I really believe in that adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so I've raised my daughter with whole foods, organic, local, whatever I can find that's local, sustainable. I look at the label and see where it comes from. I don't like it to come from 3,000 miles away. And she's a pretty healthy kid. She also spent her early years at Earth Haven Eco Village in the summertime, playing in the creek and running in the woods, and was around clean air, and I wanted to give that to her as a start. But my work is in town, and so I really needed to be in town. So I've continued to look for people who share in the same values around how we feed our kids. Every year at school I talk to the teachers about sugar and ask that not be given in excess. And so my goal is to continue to encourage and teach her at this age. She's in a wonderful summer school program, Terrace Summer, and the kids work in the garden in the morning when it's cooler in the morning. They're out there, they propagate plants, and they grow these plants, and they harvest these plants, and what they harvest they bring into the kitchen, and they're learning how to grow food. They're learning about where food comes from. They're learning about what local sustainable is. There's a new acronym that I just learned, and it's Soul Food. And Soul Food, S-O-U-L. Soul, S is sustainable, O is organic, U is unprocessed, and L is local. So I say that's the way to go.
In the mountains, way up high, there's a place that I heard of that we call Firefly. Somewhere high in the mountains, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the cars are far behind me, where troubles fall like birdie plopped way up in the treetops. That's where you'll find me. Oh, somewhere high in the mountains, bluebirds fly. If birds fly over the mountain, over the mountains, why, oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly to Firefly, then so